The Hail Varsity Radio Saturday Morning Show, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Strap yourselves in. Here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt.
Y'all don't even know he was a virgin until he's 28, and now, roll tide.
And Mark Cranack.
Time has come for someone to put his foot down. And that foot is me.
Welcome to it, weekend editions here at Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Mark Cranack. Elijah Herbal is in. Hope you're doing all right. It's Nebraska, Wisconsin. We'll talk about it, see how things shake out for 2:30 with the Big Red and the image of Big Red that Barry Alvarez has created and passed down and kept passing down. And you know what? Two teams that started similar and one team that got fixed and another team that hopes to be fixed. Numbers to get in, 466-3776, 466-3776, 800-825-5865. Find us on Twitter. Can always follow Hail Varsity at Hail Varsity, at ESPN Lincoln, at Schmidt_radio, and at Herbal Essence for Elijah. Cranack, you're still doing the old Twitter fast right now?
I sure am, buddy.
Right.
It's good. It's not a bad thing to do from time to time.
No worries at all. Cranack, how you feeling? What's up? I stepped outside, man, and it's pleasant out. And, you know, weather-wise, I mean, brother, I've got a date to pick up a couple slabs of baby back ribs and about 6 reams of kebabs and a little football party going on. I'm excited. Could be a patio football day for us.
Well, that's pretty solid. I'm gonna do some pulled pork today.
Okay.
We're a little bit locked in. The girl got COVID. She's fine, but that limits your your social options, which is fine. If you're gonna have to be stuck inside, at least it's a college football Saturday and a day that Bud Crawford fights.
Yeah, Bud's money. That's awesome.
Yeah.
He'll do his thing tonight. That's great. Husker basketball looking more like Fred Hoiberg wants them to look with sharing the basketball. You beat the mighty Bengals of Idaho State, and I'm not being snarky. I mean, good. You looked like a decent basketball team last night, 78-60 rather, with a season-high 18 assists. Nebraska women went out the right way, senior night against Penn State. So maybe it's going to be a good weekend, Cranack, and Nebraska football still has something to say about their season. While it won't include postseason, still a lot of questions in the air with what direction they take moving forward offensively against a really great defense. You've got a couple more games, perhaps, of Adrian Martinez. And this game has always meant something. It's just not ever gone Nebraska's way. And it's been the ultimate humbling experience. It's one thing, like, if Ohio State kills you, and they've done that more times than not. But with Wisconsin, when they hammer you, I mean, it hurts a little more if you're a Nebraska fan just because of how they do it. And who they do it with.
Part of it, of course, right? And it's just like taking the Nebraska blueprint and the kind of football that we all like. I don't want to say we all. There's probably some people that just want to air it out. Mm-hmm. But it's the style that we all
grew up on.
Yes, that's how you play football. Yes, that's what you're supposed to do. It's funny, though. Nebraska has kept it pretty close in recent years, even with Riley's terrible teams, like the 2017 team. It was pretty damn close up until the end, up until the fourth quarter. So, like, you never look at them and think, oh my God, it's a matchup nightmare. There's no way Nebraska can do anything. But there's always something that pops up where Wisconsin makes the play. It's very similar to the Iowa series. Mm-hmm. Very similar. Where it looks like Nebraska comes ready to play mentally, but for whatever reason, for many reasons, culture reasons, others, they can't break through. And then today, is that going to happen when you have like, I'm just trying to figure out like the actual mechanics of running an offense today when 4 of the voices you're used to hearing in headsets on the sidelines, like the whole operation of it, game planning, the communication within a game. I'm really curious to see how that's all going to work today, right? Like you would imagine that most of it is on Frost.
Yes.
Right. Trying to tell everybody, hey, here's how we're going to do it. It's just logistically, it's going to be a challenge for them today. And, oh, by the way, you're doing that against the number 1 defense in the country after facing the number 1 offense in the country before the bye. So I don't know. It's what the team can do, though, is I firmly believe if wins happen, Wisconsin and Iowa, the tenor of this place would be off the charts positive going into the winter.
It'd be a lot
like off the charts positive.
No, and you know how you felt in 18 as a Nebraska fan, where you started out 0-6, but you won 4 of your last 2, right? You felt really positive, even though year 1 was tough with the struggle and the start. And you had a great hope going into 19, and then it derailed against Colorado. But you could have all the uncertainty and question marks with, who's going to be the new 4 on offense. You got a 5th year. You've restructured. You've got a more manageable schedule for 2022. Yep. I mean, all of those things, that's kind of where I'm at. I really want to watch today and see how Nebraska grinds through this. They've been very yeoman-like with their grind this year. They've not blinked. They've not won, but they've been in position to do so. So the finish line is almost here. You're in Madtown today. You got Black Friday looming. And if they can go out and even a split, I think you'll feel all right, even though it's still that 4-8 or 5-7 staring at you. If 3-9 happens, I mean, just crickets, right? You're gonna, even if it's more of the same, where it's a 3-point or a 7-point loss. But yeah, you can flip this thing, and you know how Nebraska fans are, and God love you. Even at 5-7, if you're able to find a way in these circumstances, which you've kind of created because you're the one who made the change on offense, it'd be a bit of a shot in the arm with this football program at least having some good momentum moving forward. You don't know how the recruiting's going to shake out. You don't know what the portal's going to be. You don't know which quarterback situation's going to be next spring. You don't know what's going on at running back. You think on paper you're supposed to have some offensive line. That's where I'm at. I want to see this offensive line just continue to fight, because I think they've got talent on that O-line. Nebraska does. Wisconsin has talent on their offensive line, and they were screwing up their first 3-4 games. And Paul Chryst did a couple of things. He fixed the offensive line, and he said, "Mertz, you're not gonna lose us the game anymore. So if that means you throw 8 times, then you're going to do it. You're going to go 4 for 8, but it's going to be okay against Purdue because our defense will get 5 turnovers, and we'll blow them out by 17." That's what this next step is for Nebraska to get their bleep in a group. And Wisconsin had to weather that early. I mean, all the stuff Nebraska has gone through with, is Scott back? Is he going somewhere? Should there be a change? I mean, you got a divided fan base if you make a change. And you've still got some vocal minority out there that are ticked that Scott's back. Well, what's been done is done, and let's see if things get fixed, right, as you go into year 5. Meanwhile, Paul Chryst doesn't get respect. He's boring. He's good at what he does, and he's pretty just kind of quiet, and he knows football. And he went back to work. They got it fixed after getting hammered consecutively. I mean, you opened the season at home and you lose to Penn State. That's looking worse the way Penn State is. Notre Dame pretty much outscores what your offensive output was through non-offensive touchdowns on top of what the Irish offense did in Chicago anyway. Then here comes Harbaugh with a little payback for you. And then you're reeling. You're reeling with a quarterback you picked. And by the way, the quarterback you let go is winning and going to win 11 ball games for Notre Dame.
Yeah.
And then your offensive line's a nightmare, and there's no running game, and poof, voila. You settle down, you fix the O-line, you have your quarterback managed, you still got a killer defense, and you find a 6'2", 240 beast at running back that's 17. Can't even buy you smokes yet.
Yeah. Look, man, and out of all of those things that you mentioned, it's like you can conceal maybe a limited quarterback, right? You can do that. You can say, okay, this guy is bad at decision making. He throws too many picks.
He was harassed. He was pressured. He was hurried. He was sacked.
Yeah.
That's why he's sucking.
But right, you can adjust. You can adjust your off. You can shield the fact that you maybe have limited receivers. You can shield the fact that you maybe have limited running backs. What you cannot shield is poor offensive line play. You just can't. You can't compensate for. I mean, you can try, but it's pretty difficult. It's pretty difficult to compensate for bad offensive line play, and that's where Nebraska's at. Like, I don't. Of all the things that we have all talked about, all the things that ail Nebraska, all the things that need to get fixed in order for Nebraska and Scott Frost to take the next step, that is the one thing. Just that. The offensive line play is so subpar. It is so substandard. I don't think people understand. Maybe they do. Adrian Martinez is like the most pressured quarterback in America. At least in the Power 5, definitely in the Big Ten. Like, and that's not to defend Adrian. I'm not saying he's the
he's not been perfect. He's not been perfect. His decision making's been off. 116 hurries.
Chris, he's under siege more than any quarterback.
13 times a game.
Like, in the Power 5. It's bad. It's really, really bad. It's very bad. Like, and I refuse to believe that is because Corcoran and Benhart are the absolute worst tackle tandem talent-wise in the nation. I don't think that's true.
No, there's a lot of people who want it. No, there's a ton of people who wanted him. You had to. I mean, Turner's a good ball player. Turner's a really good ball player who rushed back because you had to have him at tackle. And we're having a different can I be frank? We're having a different conversation. We want to talk about Paul Chryst fixing his offensive line. Guess what? Nebraska thought they did after Michigan State, where they went to Big Teddy and left. You moved Turner to right, and then all of a sudden, I mean, Northwestern's not good, but you saw how more competent the O-line looked, and you could run whatever the hell you want. You could run it. You could drop back and have a long developing pass pattern work because you had time to take a shot downfield versus you get the shotgun snap and it's time to run for your life like you're in a horror movie. You had it fixed, and then Teddy's injury hit against Michigan. And then that was a bit of a chain reaction, and you're back to square one where you're getting sacked by Oklahoma and you're getting sacked by Michigan State, okay? So, listen, Benhart is also a good ball player. The reality is this. They've got young guys that have started the season before. Turner has not, but Benhart has, okay? They've got young guys that have started before, and you had new spots on the interior at guard, and that's been problematic, but you made changes with Nuri. Cam Jurgen's been the only staple, and he can't block for everybody. So
no.
that's where you're at. I think given more time to develop, you're not having to play these kids that early, and they're better. And that's the heart of this too. Moving
That's
forward.
part of it too, right? Maybe they're playing before they're actually ready to do so, it's hard to evaluate them. But a lot of programs have to do that, though.
No, I know, and you've seen it with Clemson this year. I mean, why do they suck in as far as Clemson terms? Because they got freshmen and redshirt freshmen. Even some guys that have started, they're not the same dudes last year because it's not the same 4 or 5 out there together. I mean, it's just maddening for Nebraska to – you want these young recruits. You want this talent to be out there. You want it to go thrive, but you want it seasoned or at least developed. You want it dry-aged is the best way to put it, right? You and I like dry-aged steaks. Elijah, jump in here as well. But Nebraska really needs, as we move forward, if we're going to talk about 2022 and what these last 2 games could mean for it, Nebraska's got to commit to development. Okay, and Nebraska's got to commit to development Monday through Thursday beyond the first team or even beyond the second team, because I think that's where you're seeing real issues, whether it's a 4-star kid that's a top 75 recruit like Turner. Injury, of course, delayed some of that development with COVID. But Nebraska needs to listen to the graybeards on what the hell they're doing at practice. Because it ain't any better and it ain't working with the guys behind your super recruits.
My question is what is the issue? Is this a development issue? Is this a weight room issue? Because whenever you have these guys that are some of the most sought-after recruits in the country, I know it's the Big Ten's full of killers along the defensive line. However, it is shocking how they struggle to both run block and pass block in every single game this year.
How did you get better? Elijah, how did you get better at Southeast on 3 playoff teams? You weren't thrown in there as a freshman or a sophomore, right? You saw some time as a junior and you started as a senior. You started also as a junior. But guess what? You drilled, didn't you? Mm-hmm. You drilled and drilled and drilled and drilled and drilled. And
I got my ass kicked by some really good linemen, too, in practice.
Yeah, you did, right? And Kradak, I don't know how much of that is going on or is going on. I mean, what is being permitted in teamwork or individual group work on the offensive line? How much live stuff is going on where, all right, guys, what are we seeing with the offensive line? Well, they stop their feet, they lean, they reach, they punch out, and it's technique, but it's also drill work. I don't think the kids on the outside, the 2 bookend tackles, have been given a fair fight with their development up until this point. They got to go perform, but I think, and it comes down to how and what you're running in practice, and that's something that Trev Alberts has been watching. I hope that's part of the tweak. I hope that's part of the CEO process for 2022 let's reassess what's going on with the development, because that's how you're going to get to postseason.
Mark, I just want to jump in real quick here because I just want to ask what is going on along the offensive line in practice? Because you heard all out of fall camp, we think the offensive line is going to be one of the leading units on this team. They're going to be solid. We're going to follow, our offense is going to go behind our offensive line. But I don't based on
push comes to shove, you don't trust it.
Based on how Nebraska's defensive line has played this year, how did we think through fall camp that our offensive line was going to be a strong suit? The defensive line does a great job filling gaps, a great job stopping the run, and we were seeing in fall camp, this offensive line's doing well. That were they able to run the ball against our defense? What is going on in practice to the point where, it's a solid defensive line. Do you think they're okay against that number 1 group, or are they only good against Nebraska's D-line? I want to know what's going on at practice.
I think so. It seems to me the way Nebraska has been able to move the ball are a couple different ways. And so it's either Adrian making a kind of a superior athletic play. He's just able to do that, or Nebraska schemes it really well. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to actual, hey, we need 2 yards right here. They know it's coming. We know it's coming. Mano y mano.
You're done.
Nebraska doesn't do really well there, right? It just doesn't. When it comes to just dropping back, protecting the quarterback, and just sort of a manageable middle of the game, middle of the field kind of play, Nebraska can't protect. You have to scheme everything. You have to trick. You have to outfox. And I know there's always that element in football, but there is not that physical dominant element at all. In fact, there's the element of getting physically overwhelmed. Because think about this too. Not only does Martinez and the Nebraska offense struggle to protect Martinez, they struggle to do it when the other team is only sending 4 or 5 guys. You're not seeing full house blitzes come at Martinez, right? You're seeing four guys come, maybe 5, and regularly you're seeing the defense drop 7 into coverage. But those 4 are still able to get pressure. And then Martinez is looking downfield for, 3 receivers covered by 7 dudes. Mm-hmm. Right? And it's just like, that is difficult. And if this sounds like a Martinez apologist segment, that's not what the intention is. But he is facing immense pressure, looking downfield at essentially double coverage everywhere. Right? And you're just like, if you could fix one thing about Nebraska, it's that the offensive line play has to improve significantly. And you do that and you unlock everything else. Then we're not worried about Martinez throwing into double coverage because he might, get single coverage. Right? You might be able to run the ball to where they're not even calling passing plays because the running game's working so well. It would just unlock so much. And it has been really bad. It has been really, really, really. Just watch today and count. When Martinez is back to throw, how many times is he under pressure? It's about like 1 out of 2 or 1 out of 3 times. And against the number 1 defense in America, that could be 2 out of 3 times, 3 out of 4 times today.
And you have no help in a running game. You have no consistent help in a run game because you are the run game at quarterback. At least you have been. So we've established the fact that Adrian is not as bad as his numbers say. And when we talk about actions and reactions, does he need to make some throws? Has he missed some crossing routes? Has he missed some wide open dudes? Did he miss a throw at the end of half and not get helped by a receiver selling out against Purdue, right? Yes to all of the above. But from a mental standpoint, Kranak, if you're trying to drop back and you're worried about how much time you're going to have or you're going to get hit, you're going to screw the throw up. You're not going to be able to execute as cleanly.
You're going to act differently, right?
Yeah, you're going to. Yeah. It's not a perfect environment to go execute the play. It never is usually. I mean, you're going to have to adjust and adapt to it. But there's a lot of the reason, and you've seen it all season long. But there's been instances too where you hang in, and you do make a touchdown throw to Omar against Oklahoma. As much as they got after you, you do hang in and make a play to take the lead against Michigan State, despite giving up 7 sacks at East Lansing. You're down 13-rip to Michigan. You get some things figured out. You make a play, and then all of a sudden you take a lead on a gorgeous Saturday night against Michigan. And even against Ohio State, your defense gets you a stop, gets you another turnover in the red zone, and you're driving to take the lead, and you don't have a third and 2 complete. It was a 3rd and 4. You missed the 3rd and 4 throw to Levi over the middle. So as many times as we talk about the offense and the pressures and the hits and the hurries and the sacks, there's been time where they've done their job. We talk complimentary football. We need to talk complimentary offense because you're not, the minutes and times you do have to throw and make the plays in critical and crucial drives, you're missing.
It's right. And that is absolutely a factor. But are you even in those situations?
Right, without him.
I'm just saying, if you could fix one thing, are you fixing Martinez?
No, it's the O-line.
In late game scenarios, or are you fixing the offensive line?
You fix the O-line, you may not have a late game scenario.
Well, preferably I'd fix both.
Yeah, of course.
It's the Big Ten. You need both.
Totally. And two things can be true at once, right? Mm-hmm. But if you're Martinez and you have been under siege and essentially swimming upstream all game, like all game long, it's exhausting mentally and physically, right? Like all game long,
with a busted
that when
jaw.
You drop back, that when it's a passing play that's called after your run game doesn't get you anywhere again, and you get a snap, and it's 3rd and long, and you're like, they're bringing 4, and we're going to do max protect, and we're only going to send 2 or 3 into the pattern, and I know I'm still going to get all kinds of pressure, right? Like, it's exhausting. So at the end of the game, I'm sure he's just, oh, yeah. Like, there's probably not a lot left in the tank. He's got to be better in late game situations. There's no question about that. But you fix the O-line, you might not be in those situations.
Well, we'll see how much of it's fixed with a new voice on the offensive line. That's the other thing. Is this team going to galvanize for the departed? Is this team going to galvanize for one another? You don't have a JoJo physically out there. He'll have his voice for sure there to support his teammates on the sideline today. But can they galvanize and go play for one another again and be excited? If they get a good start, they'll be trading punches, which will be nice. If it doesn't start so well, that could be a familiar Wisconsin-Nebraska scene in Madison. We'll get some thoughts on Nebraska and the Wisconsin matchup. Rewind on the way with Coach Gary Barnett. Some thoughts around the coaching carousel as well from Barney, as every job it feels like and seems like is open. And in hour 2, Brandon Vogel will recap Husker volleyball, some takes on Nebraska-Wisconsin today, and then the Iron Horse, Gary Sharp, with us to round out a weekend edition of Hail Varsity. We're presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Now back with Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery, with Chris Schmidt and Mark Cranack.
Back into it at Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery, Nebraska, Wisconsin, and the Buffs take on Washington. We say hi to Hall of Fame coach Gary Barnett with Northwestern and Colorado, and set for another weekend of college football. Coach, we're almost to Black Friday. Still some more games to get through. How's your week been? What do you know?
Oh, nothing. I'm just watching all this coaching carousel unfold, and it's just crazy. I've never seen so many interesting things happen in one year than I've seen this year, between the games, the upsets, the fact there's one really good team and just a bunch of other guys, the coaching changes, Jimmy Lake gets fired after 13 games. I mean, holy smokes, there's TV money. It's just made it like a video game out there, and it's nuts, but it's guys like us have something to talk about, that's for sure.
Absolutely. And it doesn't ease things. I mean, the money makes you feel a little better. There's some security there, but guys are competitors, and they don't like change if they're being asked. And just what's you hit on it, the TV money is the difference maker here when it comes to moving on from somebody. I want to kind of get your take on, and there's no magic wand or one size fits all, but from a patience versus a time to make a move. Coach, this isn't the year to make a move with about 50 jobs, it feels like, that's open, unless you can go get your guy.
Unless you've already got him lined up, and you've got to know it's him. But, I mean, you could be like Texas. I mean, they got a great deal by firing Tom Herman, getting Sarkisian, don't you think? I mean, there's an example of going and getting your guy that may not even be your guy. It's such a crapshoot on everybody trying to catch lightning in a bottle, and society and the way we do things now doesn't let you take the 4 or 5 years it takes to build a roster, and now they think the portal gives you a chance to build your roster faster, and I don't think it does, Chris. I think it just is another game you play in trying to right the process, because it looks like to me, at least with the portal, the guys at the top, the Alabamas, the Georgias, they prosper because they get the best players that are proven at other places that want to play at a higher level, or the highest level. And I think the people at the bottom who have struggled with getting a roster, they get some help, especially in grad transfers, and then everybody else in the middle just sort of trades each other's problems. And so I don't know that this portal is going to be the answer to it, but it's the way people are going about it right now.
What's fascinating is to look at Michigan State's flip around, and I know Mel wasn't in Boulder as long as he could have been, but Tucker, he could have a Heisman winner from the portal. That's more the exception than the rule. He's the one guy that may be giving some false hope to other programs and staffs that want to hit it big and hit the lottery in the portal. They've been great in 2 years, but that might not be the norm.
Well, no, you're right. That's how everybody's using him as the norm, but or as the goal. But it's you have no idea. I'll guarantee you, Mel Tucker didn't have any idea that guy was going to be that good. I'll guarantee you just don't know that. You hope, but you don't know it. It's fascinating to watch from afar. I know that.
We'll get to some Nebraska stuff in a minute, but what's your mood around the Pac-12? I mean, CU's scuffling. Washington whacked their coach. Who knows what happens at UCLA where Chip is, right? And then you got SC that's been open. I mean, you got a ton of athletes, and then there's Oregon, right? I mean, it seems like every year, every other year, there's a lot of Pac-12 gigs open.
Yeah, it does, but it seems like it starts slow and then it builds, and all of a sudden there's a bunch. But this year it started early, and it's going to be a bunch. Oregon's probably the best team, but they've got to play Utah this week and Oregon State next week, and then get by Utah again. So, I think the likelihood of them being in the playoffs is very slim. Okay. But Cristobal is on everybody's list to hire. And there's just a few guys out there that are proven entities for all these jobs. Matt Campbell, I think, is throwing his name back in some places, and he should pluck one. And then James Franklin's trying to get out of there with Mel Tucker being locked up now. You never know if Mel's locked up, though, by the way.
Well, 9.5 should lock anybody up, shouldn't it?
Yeah, well, it's funny money. And so I think LSU now probably looks at Franklin a little bit more because he was in the SEC. So I don't know where they're all going. We've got two openings during the middle of the season in the Pac-12 with Washington State and now Washington both being open, and they're going to play each other next week without a head coach. I mean, how nuts is that?
What's your thought on Aranda? Does he stay, or does he look at an LSU or an SC because he's familiar with both?
Well, I think he's going to listen, and there's one thing I learned about being at the other end of it.
Yeah,
you only get leverage so many times, and you better take advantage of it. But be careful what you wish for. And I mean, it's a two-edged knife there, sword. But Aranda has put himself in a position to really be a prime candidate for all these jobs, and he's really good, Chris. I go back and remind you, I was trying to do a book for a while, and I went to about 7 or 8 halftimes. I was going to do a book on halftime adjustments. And Aranda was the most impressive, and he was a defensive coordinator at that time at Wisconsin. He was the most impressive guy of all the guys I went through, and I won't tell you who all I went through. He was the most impressive guy that I saw in the locker room at halftime with his players.
What was so impressive about him? Tell me a little more.
Well, just the maturity and the calmness, and the fact he was listening to players. He made decisions. He just had more of an organized mind and an organization to his halftime work than anybody else I saw.
That's so key, isn't it? And you've lived it. I mean, you've had to figure out what someone else is doing and counter or switch it up, right? I mean, that's not an easy 20 minutes.
No, and it's way overrated because way overrated. Not, because colleges don't have access to all the video and the things that you do in the NFL. The NFL players come right in, they sit down, they have their own area, they have all the video right there in front of them playing, showing them exactly what happened, what they need to do. You don't have any of that in college. None. So it's just whatever the GA writes on the board that he thinks he saw upstairs in the booth, and then you're talking to players, but you don't have much time, and then you got to formulate a plan. So it's several teams did a first-half plan and a second-half plan. They didn't have to make an adjustment or try to make adjustments because it's really hard to do. But there was a lot of different approaches to it.
Gary Barnett, few minutes with us, Hail Varsity Radio, talking coaching carousel. Nebraska needing to make some hires here on offense, Coach Barnett. And, when you were kind of vetting a guy or putting the staff together, and I know we touched on this a little bit last week, but who did you lean on? Who did you listen to? Or were you pretty good out of the gate with that first experience, knowing where you wanted to go to put a hire or staff together? Because that's what Scott Frost is facing, and I just wonder who he's listening to.
There wasn't anybody I necessarily listened to. I listened to everybody, but the people that I relied on more were my own staff members who had worked with other people out there. But for me, it was always about the fit as well. I mean, there's a lot of guys who know football. Everybody knows a pretty high level of football. Some are better teachers than others, but the family fit was important to me too. And because you're in a trench and war for hopefully 4 or 5 years together, and man, that better be a tight-knit group. So that was important to me. But like I said, I did rely on my assistant coaches. And then if there were, what happens is you get a million phone calls, an absolute million phone calls of people recommending you. And, everybody's out right now trying to get this guy or that guy, Tom Osborne to call Scott, trying to get, whoever, Bill McCartney to call Scott. Somebody's got a name recognition or somebody he might respect. But, most of that I understood the game, and I just sort of let it, go off my back. I wanted to know them, meet them, vet them, and I wanted them to be a good fit. So how's that meeting go? Is it in the office? Do you go play golf? Do you go for a steak? I mean, how would you want to conduct that interview? So it's not like an interview. So it's more like what a work situation it'd be. Oh, no, I want to see them in person. Yeah. I want to sit there in a work environment and see them, put them on the board, and then I want to know about them. So, it was in a work area. So. Gary Barnett's with us. Coach, let's talk Nebraska, Wisconsin. I think the line's 9.5. What concerns would you have if you're Nebraska? And the other side of it here is Wisconsin's been white hot, and another Wisconsin defensive coordinator, Justin Leonard's led the charge with it. How does Saturday look at 2:30 for the Big Red? You look at the numbers on this, and their greatest tool is the fact that they play great defense. They only allow 216 yards a game, Chris, 155 throwing pass defenses, but only 60 in the rush game. 60. That's amazing. So, Mertz he's thrown more to the other guys than he has to his own guys in the end zone. He's got 8 TDs and 9 interceptions. So this is a team that's going to try to beat you on the ground and beat you with your defense. So, Nebraska, you look at Nebraska, you look at their numbers, you look at what they can do. If they just go play like they can play and not turn the ball over, they can win this game and they're due. They're just due for one of those games. I'm not saying this is it, but I sure would, having changing coaches, that may or may not help. You never know. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But, this is a game that if they're focused, they could win this game now. Their problem is they lost 4 in a row, and Wisconsin's won 5 in a row. And so that gets in your head. When you lose 4 in a row, you think you'll never win another game. And that's just human nature. And when you win 5 in a row, you don't think there's anybody that's going to beat you now. So, that mindset is what's going to play into this game more than anything else. Do you like what Adrian's done? And then last year COVID got this ball game, so no one got to play. But Adrian's had good ball games. It's been more special teams and defense where it's been about a 17 to 20-point difference. But Nebraska's put up the yards, Coach, against Wisconsin. No question. And he's got 3,000 yards this year. He is a dynamic playmaking guy. He just also makes a lot of mistakes. Mm-hmm. So, if he goes in and plays mistake-free and plays the way he has, then Nebraska has a good chance to win this game, but also more, to cover too.
Well, good teams win, great teams cover, Coach.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, you're like, don't tell me about that. Gary Barnett's with us, Hail Varsity Radio. We'll do some rapid fire and get you out. Not a ton of interesting games this weekend, but a few. How about Arkansas-Bama? I think Bama's favored by 21.
Yeah, I like Arkansas on the cover, but I like Alabama to win this game. Arkansas is solid, and Bama has got some warts, and if they show up, then I think Arkansas is going to be right in there with them. But I don't think they can beat them, but I think that they're going to stay with them.
Iowa State shocked by Tech last weekend, despite the officiating. If you ask the Tech broadcast crew, Iowa State's got to go to OU, -3.5 Sooners, and Oklahoma shocked. And just for kicks, Aranda put another field goal up on Oklahoma before the buzzer.
Well, you read about. First of all, you can't ask the broadcasters about the this weekend because they're not working for.
No,
Texas
exactly.
Tech. But I thought Aranda had a pretty good point in why he did it. And I think Lincoln was being a little childish. Mm-hmm. They broke the code. Give me a break. Iowa State, OU. I think OU has got as many warts, more warts than Alabama. And Iowa State, I don't know which team's going to show up at that game, but it's at OU. It's hard not to pick OU in this game. And so I won't. I'm going to stay with Oklahoma.
Okay. How bad does it get in Columbus, or does Michigan State surprise? It's -19 Buckeyes over Mel and his potential payday.
I think it's about right. I think Ohio State is playing big time right now. Mm-hmm. They're the team who's gotten better every week. Of all the teams that are out there, they're the one I think every week has gotten better. And Michigan State, who knows? They're not a top to bottom great team, but they are a doggone good offense. I know that. But I still think Ohio State wins this thing just about by the spread.
Tell me about K-State and Baylor before we say goodbye. K-State -1.
I watched that Baylor game last week, and K-State just bores you to death. They just don't beat themselves. Baylor will beat themselves, but Baylor's good, and that defense is good, and that quarterback is good. I'm going to go with Baylor in this game.
Coach Gary Barnett. Coach, we'll try and connect before Black Friday. Thanks for the time today.
All right, Chris. Great being with you.
The Hail Varsity Radio Saturday Morning Show, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Strap yourselves in. Here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt.
Y'all don't even know he was a virgin until he's 28, and now, roll tide.
And Mark Cranack.
Time has come for someone to put his foot down. And that foot is me.
Back with you, Weekend Edition, Hour 2. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Mark Cranack, Elijah Herbal in this morning. Real Red Reaction starts about 4 today on ESPN Lincoln. Stream us, ESPNLincoln.com. Reacting to Nebraska, Wisconsin. We'll get there. We kick off this second hour with managing editor with HailVarsity.com and magazine and author with John Cook, Dream Like a Champion. Brandon Vogel with us at Brandon L. Vogel on Twitter. Vogue's going to go volleyball before we go Badgers and Huskers. And how about that finish for Nebraska volleyball to sweep Penn State, but specifically set 2, Slim and none, and Slim left town, right? You're down 22-15 to Penn State, and Nebraska musters a comeback. What'd you think?
Yeah, you don't see that very often. You can be down 20 and climbing out of that big of a hole is pretty rare. To do it against, kind of your classic Big Ten rival. That point where
had pretty good sense that Nebraska was rolling. Coach Cook said, post game, I think the first set was as good as they have played this season, and then you add on that comeback and gives them a little bit of momentum rolling into a tough 2-game road swing to close things out.
Brandon Vogel with us on Hail Varsity Radio. And Brandon, to close things out, it was supposed to be Rutgers tonight. They had to cancel because of health reasons, so Nebraska gets a little bit of time off. But then they closed the season out. You got Purdue and you got Wisconsin. There is a logjam at the top of the Big Ten standings. It seems like Nebraska's got the toughest road to hoe, though. Do you think they pull it off, right, and finish atop the Big Ten, or is that closing slate a little bit too much?
Probably a little too much, just based on the recent history with Wisconsin. So you win that one, you're right there. But we'll see. We'll see how far Nebraska has come since the last time they played. But it's just been Wisconsin with this group that it has had that are now upperclassmen and beyond. A lot of them are super seniors. Just kind of match up well with Nebraska over a lot of that period. So, yeah, I think the Badgers are still a pretty deserving favorite there, although they've got a couple more matches to play.
Vogues, if you were to put money down, who do you think John Cook likes to beat most in the Big Ten? Is it his former squad? Is it Penn State? I mean, it's a brutal slate. I mean, and Nebraska's part of that brutality because of how good they've been. The league's incredible, and they smack each other during the season. And you've got a Big Ten team in the Elite Eight or Final Four. It feels like every year, and a champion sometimes. But if you got him in a corner and you're just having an orange juice with him, who do you think he likes? Who enjoys beating more? Is it a Wisconsin or a Penn State?
I would guess it's still Penn State, though. Right now it may not feel that way. I mean, you just look at the Penn State program and Nebraska, and you've got two legends in college volleyball coaching. So it's been, a pretty familiar foe throughout that entire stretch. And, when Nebraska came into the Big Ten, Coach Cook wasn't shy.
Do we have you, bud? Let's try
for Nebraska for a while, and I think for that reason it becomes pretty tough to shake. So Wisconsin's doing its best, and special mention too with how things went down at the end of last season in the NCAA tournament. I think Texas still ranks pretty high, even though those two teams don't see each other on a yearly basis anymore.
Brandon Vogel with us on Hail Varsity Radio. You know what? I think one of the biggest surprises of the year, and just want to get your take on it, is Maddie Kubik's consistency. If you look at her improvement from last year to this year, and that she's been basically the rock of this year's team, did you see that coming? Are you surprised at how she has just kind of completely retooled her game and become that steadying force for Nebraska, where I don't think there was huge signs of that coming into the year?
No, I don't think there were signs that would have led you to think that was kind of the most probable path. The ceiling was obviously there for her to be that type of player. And really, we got into Big Ten play before Nebraska kind of had that moment where, I don't know what the conversation was, but effectively you had Alexi Sod and Maddie Kubik, you're kind of two veteran players with Stivrins still out at that point, so she was close to coming back. And, you kind of looked at them and said, one of you needs to, step in and be that kind of rock, because we got all this young talent out here, but there's still a little bit adrift, just like you'd expect freshmen to be. And Maddie was really the one to kind of take hold of that and did it through much of Big Ten play. Had kind of a rough week last week, but that's okay. They came through it, and here she was again. And you're right. She has emerged as that type of player for Nebraska.
Brandon, before we switch gears to football, Nebraska needs to do what? Nebraska needs to get better at what to be real contenders once the NCAA tournament comes around?
They need more consistency offensively, and I think Coach Cook, kind of reading between the lines of the comments, I think they need a little bit better selection in terms of where they're going with the ball. So setting in particular, but it's been tough because Nebraska's offense has been so up and down that it's easy to feel like you get into these tense points where maybe it's a long rally or maybe you're trying to make a comeback. And it's hard to feel like you can run your full offense because for stretches of this season, Nebraska hasn't been able to. So I think if they're able to get that and just kind of have that trust of we can go anywhere with this, and I feel confident in wherever I go with the ball, being able to get a kill, that might be kind of the extra gear I think Nebraska needs because defensively, particularly floor defense, they're playing at, a Final Four national championship type caliber there. That's never really been the question, but they just need a little more pop offensively.
Brandon Vogel joins us, HailVarsity.com and magazine. Some volleyball thoughts. Huskers end with the duo, Purdue and Wisconsin here in their quest for another Big Ten title. Big Red at 20-6 right now. Incredible effort last night to come back and sweep Penn State. Vogues, let's stick with the offensive theme, and let's talk plan of attack for Adrian in Nebraska against the Badgers and Coach Leonard. How does Nebraska try and go to work today?
Good question. Many teams have tried this season, and not many have had much success, even in those losses. Michigan's the one